So the Oklahoma City Thunder are now one game away from being eliminated in the playoffs, and it's a really strange situation because they look very similar to the team that in the regular season was the 1 seed in the West, was kind of the surprise story of the season, with one distinct difference. And that is that Oklahoma City, their thing all season long was 5-out offense. They get out in transition, they shoot a lot of threes, they make a lot of threes. They're one of the best shooting teams in the entire league. That is honestly more than anything else, more than SGA, more than Chet, more than defense, more than anything. Their identity has been they shoot threes and they make threes. Except in this series, they just cannot make shots. At home, they can't make shots. They can't make shots when they're open. They can't figure out a 5-man lineup to run out there. And if Oklahoma City's season is over after Game 5 or after Game 6 or after Game 7, whatever the case may be, it's going to be because they just can't make shots. Now, to be fair, I want to give credit to Dallas's defense here, right? Like, they have done a fantastic job of just throwing length and activity at SGA. And SGA has still been able to beat them a good amount of times with really, really tough twos. But the equation is just different right now for Dallas than it is for OKC because Dallas has multiple options. They can go to Luka, they can go to Kyrie, and Oklahoma City's only real option to slow those guys down are these hard traps. And they've done a really good job of getting the ball out, and then the bigs have been finding other guys. They're getting like wide open looks. OKC, SGA is obviously very good. They're collapsing on him, but they're not creating the same level of three-point shot opportunities. Like the shot making there's definitely a difference there, but the shot quality, there's a significant difference there for OKC as well, whether it be home or away or otherwise. Has to do with Dallas's length, has to do with how they're rotating, and it has to do with the fact that they only have one creator out there. Like there's one guy that they need to be worried about. Like obviously Jalen Williams is pretty good. Like there's some other options, but like it's basically SGA, and that's the only guy they have to guard. And if Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Chet, if these guys aren't hitting shots off the ball, OKC suddenly becomes very easy to guard, which is interesting because they've been difficult to guard all season long. But the more this series has gone along, I think the more it's become clear that Dallas is almost built perfectly to deal with this Oklahoma City team. One, for stuff we've already talked about, dealing with the shot making, the length, the activity level, the way that they're able to guard, the way that they're able to hide some of their weaker defenders, the way that some of their weaker defenders have been more active and engaged, particularly in the series. But the other thing that's been kind of glossed over is not just the rebounding numbers. There was a significant rebounding difference in Game 5, but what that means for Oklahoma City's offense. I mean, it's one thing to say a team is getting a ton of offensive rebounds and a ton of second chance points and how much obviously that affects your defense, but OKC's inability to rebound is also affecting their offense because one of the things that makes them so great, one of the things that allows them to get good three-point shot opportunities in the regular season is that they rebound the ball and they get out in transition. Right now, they have to keep so many guys at the rim just to try and secure a rebound that they're not able to get out in transition. They've had to play some other lineups. There's been some times where like big Jalen Williams or Kenrich Williams are playing alongside Chet, which is something they haven't really done in a while because they want all this offensive spacing. And I think the most concerning thing right now, if you're a Thunder fan, is it feels like they're out of options. It feels like they're out of adjustments. And it sounds really reductive to just be like, yeah, shoot the ball better and you'll win the games. But shoot the ball better and you'll win the games. Like I was screaming and yelling about the fact that, Josh Giddey doesn't need to be playing anymore. They benched Josh Giddey, like barely played in Game 5. They started Isaiah Joe. They brought in Cason Wallace. They tried Aaron Wiggins. They tried all this different stuff. And none of it has worked for them. They have tried to trap Luka and Kyrie. They've tried to stay at home more on some of these shooters. And defensively, they've had some success there. But their lack of size just continues to be an issue, whether it be at the rim. Obviously, Chet has good block numbers. But Dallas is getting so many dunks and lobs every time down the floor, it feels like. And no matter what defensive coverage they throw at Dallas, they're still not able to make up that gap on the offensive end. And it's crazy, too, because it's not like SGA is struggling. Like SGA is being put in as adverse of conditions as any star has been put in the entirety of the postseason in terms of spacing, in terms of the amount of attention he's getting, in terms of the shot quality that he's getting. And he's still getting 30 every night. Like it might not be the most efficient 30 depending on free throws and shot attempts and all that stuff, but like he's still getting his 30 every night. And that honestly is even more concerning for Oklahoma City, that like it's not necessarily, oh, we just can't get SGA going, we can't get him going in this series. It's just that the other guys are not making shots. And it obviously doesn't mean that the series is over, right? I mean, Oklahoma City can win the last 2 games if they make some more shots. I think honestly, they could have won multiple other games in this series that they lost if they just made more threes. The problem is there's no thing that is pointing them in the direction of, oh, well, if this changes, then we'll shoot better. They shot well in Game 1. They didn't shoot well in Game 2. That was at home. They didn't shoot well in Game 5. That was at home. Obviously, they haven't shot well in the away games either. Like, there's no real thread to this that says, okay, well, if we play this 5-man lineup, we have 5 guys out there that can space. That was their thing all season long. They're going to play 5-out offense, and they're always going to have spacers out there. And sometimes Josh Giddey. That was their thing the entire season. They don't have a 5-man lineup in this series that they can put out there that they know can space. Even someone like Isaiah Joe that they put out there hasn't been shooting the ball as well, and obviously he's way more of a defensive liability than someone like Cason Wallace is, but Cason Wallace isn't making shots either. Last night I think it was 1 for 7, 1 for 8 or something from 3. And it's got to be extremely frustrating because obviously Dallas is guarding them well. We talked about that. But OKC's not doing anything that different on the offensive end, apart from not being able to get out and transition as much because of the pressure on the offensive glass Dallas is putting on them. They're not doing anything that much different. Like, they, by and large, look like the team that they were during the regular season, apart from the ball actually going in the basket. And during those stretches where they're hitting shots, they're hitting threes, they're able to come back in these games, it looks really good. But for a large portions of this series, because of the lack of shot making, some of these games haven't really been all that competitive. Like, Dallas maintained like an 8 to a 15-point lead basically the entirety of game 5. And they just have Dallas, I should say, just has so many more options, it feels like, right now than OKC. In terms of looking forward, the rest of the series, adjustments I could see OKC making, they're probably just going to have to risk it a little bit more on some of those offensive rebounds. Like, they're just going to have to work in transition more because their half-court offense, unless it's SGA tough twos, Dallas's defense has just been too good. And I understand that that's scary to potentially give up offensive rebounds, but you're at the point in the series where, like, you have to find a way to jumpstart the offense. The defense has been good enough. The rebounding has been okay. You have to find a way to jumpstart the offense. That, by and large, is the identity of the team, and it is completely gone away to me. The other thing is we can't have any Giddey minutes. You got to find, who the 5th guy is. I still think, despite a rough shooting performance, I still think Cason Wallace is the guy that should be finishing games. Either him, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins. Find the guy. Play those 5 guys a ton, because that's one of the issues for OKC right now is they have 4 players that are playing pretty well. Like, Dort's not shooting the ball well, but he's guarding. Jalen Williams is having his moments. Chet is having his moments. Of course, SGA has been awesome. They don't have a 5th guy, and that's kind of been a thing all season long. They've been kind of searching for that, and I expect them to address that in the offseason. But when it comes down to, like, hey, we got to win this basketball game, you got to find your 5 guys. So however it happens during the game, whether you start Giddey, you don't start Giddey, you start Cason Wallace, which I think is certainly still an option for them. Find something and stick to it. Like, just run those guys out there. They did that a little bit at the end of game 5, where it was like, okay, Cason Wallace is guarding really well. He's going to make some shots. Let's run these 5 guys. Unfortunately, Cason Wallace did not make any shots, but still, I still think that's their best option. Find the 5 players that play well together and roll with that. And for Dallas, I mean, it's not really a lot of adjustments to be made. I mean, their size is becoming an issue for OKC on the glass. They've won these games in multiple different ways. They've won games where they're making a ton of threes. They won games like they did in game 5 where they just destroying OKC in the paint. They've won games where Luka was awesome. They won games where Luka scored like 19 points. Like, they just have so many options. And really the only other thing I would point to is I still want to see Kyrie be more aggressive offensively, because, like, at first it was, hey, it's really cool that Kyrie's, he's guarding and he's getting his teammates involved, all that stuff. But it's quickly getting to the point of, like, okay, but it would be cool if Kyrie would score a little bit more, right? Like, you want to make sure he's in a rhythm and he starts to get some things going. So I do want to see that a little bit more from Kyrie the rest of the series in terms of adjustments for Dallas. Apart from that, they look really good, and they look like they might have a decent matchup as well going into the conference finals against either Minnesota or Denver. We're not quite there yet. Obviously OKC could win game 6. They could win game 7 at home, certainly, but their season is quickly approaching its end, it seems like.